Welcome to Connect Canyons, a podcast sponsored by Canyon School District. This is a show about what we teach, how we teach, and why. We get up close and personal with some of the people who make our schools great. Students, teachers, principals, parents, and more. We meet national experts too. Learning is about making connections. So connect with us.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. It's a quote you may have heard before, particularly those who are fond of theater. But the beginning of this monologue from William Shakespeare's As You Like It has become a popular turn of phrase, understood by many outside of the world of performing arts. It just goes to show that good theater can live on for centuries and can take on new meanings. It's a tradition the Hillcrest Theatre Department hopes to continue as they set to lift the curtain on a performance 9 years in the making. Welcome to Connect Canyons. I'm your host, Francis Cook. In today's episode, we're talking about a show making its American debut at Hillcrest High School. I'm joined now by Hillcrest Fine Arts teacher Joshua Long. Thank you for joining us. And we have 3 of our stars from the upcoming shows, The James Plays. I'd like you all to introduce yourselves and who you're going to be portraying in the plays.
Hi, I'm Mary Wilhite, and I will be portraying the Queen Joan of Scotland.
Yes, you will. Hi, I'm Gabriel Abbott. I'll be playing King James II of Scotland.
And I'm Austin Beals. I'll be playing James III of Scotland.
Well, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know with rehearsals and everything, you're all very busy. Mr. Long, let's start with you. Would you tell us what are the James Plays?
It is a trilogy. It's a series of 3 plays written in 2014 by a playwright named Rona Munro. And they chronicle 67 years of Scottish history following the reigns of King James I, King James II, and King James III of Scotland, which is about roughly the same time as Henry V, Henry VI of England, which a lot of people know a lot of that history.
Sure.
Partly because Shakespeare kind of dramatized
a little bit, right?
Did that for us. And Rona, who's a Scottish playwright, she had grown up learning about Scottish history, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that went down in their history, and she wanted to theatricalize that and put that on stage for people as part of her Scottish heritage. But there was so much stuff that ended up being this trilogy of 3 different plays that are 3 very distinct plays. The first play is the reign of King James I, and it has, a beginning, middle, and end. It's its own story. And then the second play is James II and his reign. And the third play is James III. And they're 3 very different stories, as well as they're written in 3 very different theatrical styles.
Interesting.
So they each stand alone, but together it tells this history of a country and a society, and there's a whole bunch of things that she put in that if you see all 3, there's a whole bunch of different really cool connections and Easter eggs and things like that.
So you don't necessarily have to see all of 3 to understand them. You can just go see number 2.
Yeah, they stand alone, and then they work as a trilogy.
But it's best to see them in their full entirety.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, this has been something you've been trying to do for 9 years now. Can you tell us what that process was like? Why is this such an important? Why is this such an important set of plays for you?
I go to London every summer and I just watch as much theater as I can. And about 9 years ago, I went and I saw this production. It was being performed at the National Theatre in London, which is
The Royal National
Theatre, which in my opinion is the greatest theater company in the world. And I watched all 3 of them in the same day. They did a whole marathon thing. And I immediately knew that this was something that I wanted our students at Hillcrest to do. It had a whole bunch of elements in it that I think are different types of theater that we really like to lean into at Hillcrest. But it also demands a large cast and a lot of people, which is why the National Theatre had picked up on it, because they're one of the few theater companies in the world that can afford gigantic casts and things like that.
Sure.
And we had done some things with the National Theatre, gotten some of their scripts, and were some of the first national premieres of some of their shows already. So I immediately contacted them, and they were like, well, of course, you got to talk to Rona. She's the one who gives the permission on that. And 8 years ago, she had originally given us permission, said, yes, go ahead and do it. So we actually announced this to be on our season 8 years ago. And then over the summer, she had some second thoughts. And she was like, look, I just think, because these, and they were, by the way, in England, these plays were a huge hit. There was a critic that said, I know this is blasphemy, but these are better than Shakespeare.
Wow.
And they're a lot more accessible because they're not written in old time language. Like they're written as if they were in the 21st century, the language. And
So no these and thous. and
exactly.
things, Yeah.
Like it reads very modern, but just like telling these historical stories, kind of like Bridgerton or something like that. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Anyway, so they were a huge hit in England, but no big theater companies in America picked up on them because it was 3 plays, and literally there's like 54 speaking roles
Wow.
and an ensemble of as many people as you can get, and no one can really afford that. She emailed us this summer, like just a month after she'd originally given us permission, and said, because this is going to be the first time anyone outside of the United Kingdom will see this, I'm a little bit hesitant because we had entered in a contract where we were going to cut and adjust some of the language,
Sure.
because there's some language that is not permissible on a high school stage in the script. And she said, I would really like people to hear these scripts as I originally intended, without any of the cuts. And I said, well, we're a high school. We have to do those cuts if this is going to work. And she said, okay, let's wait on this. Let's wait until maybe it gets done a little bit more. And so I'm sorry, but I'm going to revoke that. Now I was so heartbroken because I was like, these plays are so great. And then we've been chatting pretty much every year since then to see, but no theater company have picked up on it. 'Cause like I said, it's so expensive and it's such a big project to do. And then finally this last April, I sent her agent a message and said, hey, we're still here. Can we do them? And then she, the email literally says, oh my gosh, this guy won't go away, will he? And she was like, fine, let him do it. Let him make their cuts. She's like, I'll be excited to see it. That'll be cool. And so here we are.
Way to be persistent.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's bring in some of your thespians here. That's a lot of pressure. How do you guys feel about being the first to perform such a big, extravagant show, 3 shows outside of the UK?
It's really, really, really exciting. And it's a great honor that I get to do that. Something that he said when we first started working on it was that since these are stories that no one's ever heard before, when people think of James the First, Second, and Third of Scotland, they're gonna see Gabe Williams' face for the first, his face for the second, and my face for the third, and that's really exciting. And since no one's heard these stories before, they don't have any preconceived notions about how the story's
Sure.
gonna go or what this set should look like. They're coming in completely blind.
Takes a bit of that pressure off.
A little bit. Yeah.
Sure.
I also think it's really exciting because of our theater department, we have a lot of really good opportunities in this department, and our theater teacher obviously just is very passionate about what we do, and I feel like our department has a lot of education and knowledge on what we're doing, and even if us as students aren't completely sure what we're doing, we can always trust that he
Sure.
and his artistic capability will just guide us through it. So I'm really excited for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just think it's a really great honor that I get to portray James II. But I think the main thing I'm worried about is people not knowing these plays, and so they're not gonna want to come necessarily because they don't know what it is. They're like, I don't know, I don't really want to go to
Sure.
the James
It's an
place. What is that?
Yeah, what is that? Like, what?
Really?
Yeah.
At a high school, I don't know what that is.
Mhm.
And so I just feel like people are going to be missing out on this great opportunity to see these great plays and these plays that we've been working on and just putting so much effort in and so much time.
Yeah.
That's
Well, your entire department has quite the history of good performances, so I would imagine that's going to get you guys a little bit of that drive. And like you said, you're putting in so much hard work into it. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing. So there are 3 separate plays. So are you all rehearsing together? Are you rehearsing separately? I mean, there's 120 some odd.
There's
actors,
137 actors,
20 crew members.
crew members, whole bunch of volunteers, backstage volunteers. Yeah,
What's that
giant
look like for you on a daily basis when it comes to rehearsals?
It's pretty different for each schedule. Like each person's schedule is pretty
Mhm.
individually different.
Sure.
There's just a lot of different groups that are in these shows, and we have the option to be in multiple shows. If you were cast in multiple shows as like part of these different groups, so those rehearsals might look a little different. And for the speaking roles, there's a little bit of overlap between like shows. You might be in one show and this show, but you might only be in one.
Sure.
So the rehearsals are all very individual, and it's really fun because then you get to work with like a broad spectrum of people, and
Yeah.
it's not like the same thing every day.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
Yeah, and some of them, like Mary's character, in the first play, she plays the wife of King James I. She's the queen. And then in the second play, her character doesn't die at the end of James I. And so in the second play, she actually plays the same character, but as like an older woman.
Okay.
She plays his mother. She plays James II's mother in that. And so some of them take their characters over the span
Oh, wow.
of multiple plays and watch them grow up. So they have to work on multiple like different physicalities and things to
Sure.
do that. And then like Austin is playing James III in the third play, but in the first and the second play, he's like in the ensemble playing a warrior in the army and things like that. So they get to all like do different things and stuff like that.
That's got to be quite an undertaking for you as well, especially you playing. You may get to play the same person, but we're talking a span of decades in between, right?
experiences to take into consideration of what happens like in between the show. There's a lot that happens after the first show that we don't see
Mhm.
that is very crucial for Joan, my character. So it takes a lot of work to like figure out, okay, how did that affect her and how am I going to make that visible on stage? It's something that I'm currently working on.
Are you growing your beard for your
I am.
characters?
I'm working on it.
Nice, very nice. There's a lot that goes into this. I mean, your physical appearance. You guys had what, 2 days of just boot camp and sword
Something like
training,
that,
and
yeah.
I saw acrobatics. Talk about kind of the physicality of it.
Okay, so there's several different groups within the show. There's like an army that he was talking about, and we learned a bunch of like sword technique and footwork and multiple different historically accurate parries, and it's so awesome. And then we have a choreographer that is like going through each little fight and making sure everything is great and awesome.
You mean like each individual pairing of
Yeah.
people battling each other on
Yeah.
the battlefield? Wow. Wow.
Very involved, and they're so cool. And then we have a nightmare sequence that takes place over the whole first act of his play.
Oh wow.
That's cool. And for that, we're doing a bunch of frantic assembly stuff, if you know what that is.
Explain that if you would. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
physical theater.
yeah, using bodies to create
The
art.
story.
It's not dance.
But it's close.
It's close to dance.
It's yeah, we've got a
It's hard
cast
to
of
describe without
like 80 kids that's like physically represent James's like inner anxiety and fears and nightmares and stuff, and they're dressed in black and tossing him all over the stage. And yeah, there's a lot of acrobatic stuff involved with that, and that's in the second play. All the like army stuff is in the first play. So like I said, each of them are kind of different.
What's it like for you to be kind of tossed around amongst your emotions?
Harder than you think.
Okay.
Because you just have to be stiff and just stay in the same position. You can't be like flopping around. They're gonna drop you or
They're doing the movement
Yeah.
for you.
yeah, basically.
Probably takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing, well, not weird. The most unique thing that though we've had to do for this one, because we've done some shows with some of that physical theater stuff. We've done a lot of like fight choreography stuff before. The thing that we've never done before is we have to do like a 10-minute long medieval football match
Yeah.
in
Really?
James II. And it's like a mixture. People don't know exactly the rules of how they did it in those time periods.
Sure.
But what we know is it's kind of like a mix of rugby and American football and soccer, and then wrestling. It all like devolves into a gigantic wrestling match. So we kind of had to like invent that game and then
Wow.
put it on. We've got a group of 30 athletes that come in and do this live on stage, and the ball's going, and hopefully we're going to keep our audience safe as well as the actors.
Right.
And then it devolves into this giant brawl, and it's really cool. And it's been fun, like really figuring that out and putting that in. So there's just so many things in here that like
A lot of elements.
yeah.
That's probably the most exhausting part of the show for me.
Really?
Yeah, it's because it's a 10-minute football match where everybody's running at all times and we're all wrestling and it's just exhausting.
So you're putting all your skill sets to use. Physical, mental,
Yeah.
learning your lines, reading your fellow actors
Yeah.
across the stage.
Yeah.
We've talked about how it's a bit of pressure to be the first to be putting these shows on, but it's also a bit freeing because you get to make up your own football game and things like that. Is the playwright coming? Do
I
we
don't know. I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, she lives
No
in Scotland, so I don't know, but we've been in communication, and
Has she been giving you advice, or how involved has she been in the project?
She worked with us on suggestions for the text changes that we need. We said, we can't say this word. She'd be like, okay. And sometimes she'd be like, I don't know. And sometimes she'd be like, why don't you switch it to this? So that's been like kind of the bulk of our communication.
Nice.
Just working on this.
She got a little bit of free reign with it. That's fun.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say free reign. She's very like, she's really great playwright. And this is honestly some of the best writing that I've directed over 100 shows at Hillcrest, and this is honestly every day almost in rehearsal. I'm like, oh my gosh, this writing is so good. It's just so. There's a scene that Gabe here has to do just minutes after this 10-minute long football game. That is these two teenage boys. That is one of the most like difficult acting scenes that I've ever given to two kids. But it's so cool seeing these young, because they're characters that actually are teenagers.
Sure.
And so like when I saw it in England, it was played by, professional actors in their 30s and stuff. And but watching these two teenage boys do this scene is actually written to be two teenage boys, and that something very dramatic happened to in Scottish history based on a true story. It's so cool. And it's kind of like a big surprise ending to the second play. But
you're able to
really
provide
cool.
that extra layer of depth as teens portraying teens.
Yeah, because like her character also like was taken from England to marry in real history to marry James I of Scotland as like a peace treaty type thing when she was 17 years old. It's cool seeing them in the actual appropriate age bracket too.
Absolutely. So tickets on sale as of February 8th.
Yes.
But the third play is almost sold out.
It is. Okay. But yes, yes. The true answer to that is yes. Because the style of the three plays are all very different, we're actually staging the third play in our black box theater, which is new. The whole Performing Arts Center at Hillcrest is very new. And it's a great place to do theater, but we wanted that one. That story's a little more intimate and the relationships, a lot more focus on these like very dynamic and political relationships in part 3. And so we're staging that in kind of a more intimate space. There's only, I think, 116 seats per night. We're running 6 nights on that one, but the tickets aren't even on sale yet. But yeah, it's already 83% sold out because we have season ticket holders who all bought season tickets at the beginning of the year, back when we were doing Into the Woods. And we have so many season ticket holders, which is so cool and great about the community of Midvale and their support of Hillcrest as a high school in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, once those tickets go on sale on the 8th, get in there and get them. Yeah.
So again, you can see them separately if you choose to,
Yeah.
but you're also combining tickets into a discounted package. Is that correct?
Yep.
Awesome.
That'll get you into all 3.
So final question, and this is for all of you. Other than obviously encouraging people to come see the show, I've heard wonderful things about Hillcrest Theatre Department. I'm ashamed to admit I've never been. I never made it over here before really starting my time with Canyons. What do you want people to know about these plays, and what do you want them to know about the importance of performing arts and Hillcrest Theatre?
These plays have a lot of characters that are not good and that are not bad. All of these characters have so many layers to them that are just like parts of humanity in every character that I guarantee anyone who comes to see these shows can relate to a part of a character in one way or another. So it's not like it's just you're sitting in the audience and watching this nice little play. It's like something that if you want to, you can lean forward and really resonate with these characters and learn something. So I think that these shows are a great opportunity for people to come and learn something.
Yeah. I would say just more of what she said, that I like to say there's no good guys and bad guys in these plays.
We're all human.
They're all, like, they all have really good features about them, and then they all have really awful features about them. And every character is that way. I mean, there are some that are more likable than others and some that are more unlikable than others. But as a whole, I can't really think of one that I would pin as this is a 100% good person.
Sure.
The end.
Kind of like all of us.
Kind of like every person ever.
All got stuff.
Like you said, it's relatable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also with the fact that it's a story that no one's heard before. If you do come and see it, leave your heart open and allow the story that you've never heard before to really hit you, and listen to it and learn. Let Rona teach you some things. She will.
I would even say, like, all of the Jameses, even though they're like, the plays are based around James I, James II, and James III, none of them do really any good things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. He's not wrong.
Want people to come see this.
I mean, they have flaws.
Yes, they do. Very many.
Yeah, and something that Rona put into these is she really researched the history and fleshed out the stories of not just the 3 Jameses, but all of the women in their lives, and that sometimes get lost in history. And she fleshed out a lot of these really great female characters around that are a variety of people as well on the range of like good to bad as far as like people. The thing that I would say about these plays is kind of a little bit similar to what Austin said, which is just like, I think it's so great that audiences that see this won't know what's going to happen. And I think lots of times nowadays with theater, we find that audiences want to come see theater that they're already familiar with, like stories they already know, or like, we know The Little Mermaid, we know like things, they've seen the movie or they've seen this. And so they come to theater a lot of times now knowing how the story's going to end. Yeah. And that's why they come see it, because they already like that, which is great. The opportunity that we have here with James, the audiences have, is to experience something that they probably don't know what's going to happen at the end, which is a whole other type of experience.
Yeah.
Especially because Americans are not very familiar with Scottish history. Like even when it was at the National in London, a lot of the British people who saw it were familiar with some of these things. So like when William Douglas comes out, they're like, oh, we know what happened to William Douglas. Whereas our audiences are going to be like, what? And they'll be able to be taken on that ride, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
And I hope our audiences keep an open mind to having kind of a new experience and sit forward and experience these stories that they are probably not familiar with, which I think is really cool.
Like you said, come with an open heart, learn something. Well, these shows sound phenomenal. I'm gonna probably, what time do tickets start? So I can
7 a.m.
7 a.m. Okay,
Yep.
I'm gonna log right in. and
Part
jump
1
in.
opens on February 23rd.
Okay.
Part 2 opens on February 29th. And then part 3 opens on March 14th. So yeah, they're not all like the same weekend.
Sure.
So you can like
Spread it out.
take a deep breath. There is a day, March 2nd, that you can see a matinee of part 1 and then the night show of part 2.
No pressure.
Yeah, for her, that's going to be a big day. But yeah, the whole calendar is at hillcresttheatre.com.
Perfect.
And that's where you can
And
get
that's where you go get tickets as well.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here. I feel like I've already learned so much about these plays, what's going into them. I can't wait to see them. I hope you all go and see them as well. Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching and listening. If there's a topic you'd like to hear discussed, send us an email to communications@canyonsdistrict.org.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connect Canyons. Connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram @Canyons District, or on our website, canyonsdistrict.org.